Welcome back, painting friends. Today we are going to paint a cute little cow with some flowers. Now I did pre-sketch mine, but don't worry, I'll show you how I did that. The colors you're going to need are teal, black, white, brown, gold, purple, and green. Don't forget to have my favorite paint brushes with you. I've got my 1-inch flat brush as well as my 10, 6, and 1 round brush. I always have a couple cups of water as well as a rag handy for keeping those brushes clean. So let me show you first how I sketched this out. I was a little bit nervous. This is a request from a viewer about making this cow. And so what I did was I started off with a circle shape right here, okay? And I would definitely draw this out if I were you. Right in the center, circle shape. From there, I added a smile to the bottom. So this is kind of where his little cow nose is gonna go. Then I took the horns and I just went out with a curved line up, and then I did make it thicker towards the head and get skinnier towards the edges. From there, I actually started, the ears took me a couple times, there's several eraser lines, but what I did was I just made what looked like a coffee cup handle or half of a heart. And then I kind of pulled it back up into the face at that point. And the ears were super simple. I went from the bottom, sorry, not the ears. The shoulders were super simple. I went from the bottom of the ear and I just curved it around. So your goal is to go ahead and kind of draw this first. A lot of times I don't pre-draw my art. I just kind of wing it as I go. But this request did stump me, so I wanted to have an idea of what I was doing before I started it. So to get started, we are going to use our number 10 round brush with some of that teal paint. And I am just going to kind of outline my cow and fill in this entire background with a teal color. All right, I've got my background painted in, and now I'm gonna just lay out the colors for my cow. And this might sound a little weird to you, but everything other than his horns, I'm gonna paint black. Now I do wanna make sure that I remember where the lines are. So as I go through here and I kind of fill this in, I'm gonna leave a very gentle layer of a white line just between those spaces so that I do remember like where his ears are, where his face is, all that stuff. So just, I'm kind of going slow, making sure that I keep that very gentle reminder of where those body parts are. I'm gonna go ahead and paint his horns in with that golden color, and then we are going to let this painting dry. And when we come back, we will start to add in some of those fun details like all of that hair onto our cow. Okay, so we now have a dry background. First of all, if you notice a lot of weird white spots up here, you can totally go through with a second layer of paint. And the fun thing about this is you can actually take that second layer of paint and make it a little bit more interesting. Let me show you how. So first of all, I'm gonna outline my animal, and then I'm going to start working my way out to the edges, and I'm gonna add just a little bit of purple on my edge. See that? Just a little bit, no need to get crazy. But then I'm just gonna kind of blend this out towards that purplish edge. And you know, you do not have to use purple, you could use white, you could use blue, but all that does is give it a little bit more of a unique edge that's gonna be slightly more interesting and make your animal look like it's kind of popping out. So I'm gonna outline my whole area. Oops, I got a little bit of paint on his horn. I'm gonna outline my whole area and then add some purple just to those edges. See how that just pops now? So we are gonna work on his horns. And so what we're gonna do with those is we are gonna start by adding some white to the top, and then we're gonna bring it down to a brown. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a second layer of this golden color so that it's easy to blend. We also still already have that background in there. So go ahead and layer on that gold again. Don't worry if you hit your face like I just did. We're gonna be painting over all of that. So once that gold is on there, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take some white and we are going to make sure that that white stays pretty clean as we're putting it on. So that means I don't want too much gold on my brush. But when we have that white on there, we're just gonna go along those edges and brighten it up. So you're gonna have to wipe your brush off often and grab more white, and we just want that top layer to be a little bit brighter. And once it's a little bit brighter, we can then take significantly less dark brown, okay? We do not need a whole lot of dark brown to make this bottom layer darker. But we're gonna take just a little bit of dark brown, wipe that brush off, and then we'll do the same thing. We'll just kind of brush it in. And we'll just bring these two colors together. So I'm gonna pull this dark brown up into that regular golden color, and then it will just magically marry into that white. It's better to go from that dark area to that light area on this. So make sure you do your light area first, and then you add in your dark area. So what you're really looking for here is just that your horns are kind of symmetrical. So you've got the same amount of dark brown, same amount of light brown. So if you have the same amount of browns on there, then you are good to move on to the next step. So what we're gonna do next is we are gonna start to just kind of lay out where the hair on our cow is gonna go. I'm gonna start on my ears because some of those are gonna be covered up with my face, okay? So the colors on this are not normal colors. You can choose to change yours. I'm gonna use some of the gold, some of the blue, some of the purple, some of the white. If you want yours to be a little bit more realistic, stick with the browns. You can even do grays, that's totally your choice. But I have my number 6 round brush, and I'm gonna start by laying out some of these teal colors. And what I really wanna focus on first is kind of where like the sway of the hair is gonna go. So I'm gonna start up here at the top left corner, and I'm just gonna make what looks like a sideways S. You see that? And then from there, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna make another line. So his little snout's gonna be there. And I wanna keep that in mind as I'm adding these layers in, because for example, this side over here is gonna have more. So this ear is gonna be covered a little bit more. So as I put some of my lines of color in here, I want to make sure, number one, that I do not have too much of that light blue towards the edge. I do want to keep that edge a little bit more of that dark color. So I'm going to add some of the gold in there. A little bit of purple. Purple's my unexpected color here. It's the color that's really going to kind of pop because it's not what you were thinking was going to happen. And then I'm going to hold off until that's a little dry before I put my white in. So now that I've got those laid out, I'm going to go ahead and follow some of these lines, and I'm going to add just a couple of lines of, again, same order. I'm going to do my teal first, then my purple, because those colors mix well together, and then I'm not going to do my white until these are kind of dry. Now with a clean brush, making sure there's no purple on it, I am gonna use a lot of that gold to kind of create my nose area. So right here is my cow's nose, that's why we kept it open. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start down here at the base layer, and I am going to make a golden line right with that white line that I left with. So I'm gonna make that just like a small little smiley face along there. And then from there, I'm going to go up and make almost what looks like a letter M. See that? And then come back down. Now I don't want to color this whole thing in because I really do want to keep that same funky vibe that I have going on. So what I'm going to do is with these colors, I'm going to have a couple lines of yellow up at the top, and it's going to fade down into that blue, letting those mix. I know we didn't let them mix anywhere else, but we're going to let them mix there, down into that purple. Again, letting them mix. Keep wiping my brush off when it gets a little too intense in mixing. Start back up at the top, add those lines of white, not white, yellow. Lines of blue. going down into that purple. Just kind of mixing those in to make a really unique gradient from that gold to that purple. We're going to let this dry. When we come back, we'll add in our white spaces and our final details. Okay, so my picture is mostly dry, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go in with our white. So on my horns right here, I'm just going to add a little bit of white just right at the top, and it doesn't have to be a solid straight line, and you can have some lines that pop down a little bit. On my ears, of course, my outside edges are going to have a little bit more white than the interior. So I'm just going to add a little bit of extra white on the outside and less towards the end. On my head, this is where it gets a little bit fun. So I'm going to actually take a couple of these lines and kind of pop them up and off. Remember, this is kind of my part line, so that's kind of where it divides. And then coming down, I'm going to keep most of them up towards the top of the head, but I will allow some of them to kind of flow downwards towards the base. I don't feel like I need to cover up all of my black in the background. I just want to make it look more connected than it did when it was all black. Now on my nose, I'm going to add a little bit of white line right up here at the top layer. Actually, I'm going to wash my brush off. I'm going to go ahead and add some black from my snout, for my actual nose holes. I'm going to grab a little bit of black and I'm going to make a circle. If you painted with me before, you're probably wondering I'm not using my finger. I was just wondering the same thing. I always do circles with my finger. I like to finger paint those. But I just went in with my brush today. So I'm going to do 2 circles, and then each circle is going to have a little hook on the bottom. And I can do just around that area with a little bit of white. I don't want it to be connected white. I just want to make it just a little pop of color. Oh my gosh, this is looking so cute. Now the next part is really gonna be up to you, whether you, I'm gonna add a little bit of yellow in here, just to cover that in. If you would like to add flowers to your cow, you can. If you think at this point after the white's on you're finished, that's also totally fine. But the request that I had flowers in it, so I am gonna put a couple of flowers. I think I'm gonna put them right here on the side. I don't think I want them in the middle. First I thought there, but I think I'm gonna go right there in the middle. So I'm going to use some green paint, and I'm gonna make my greenery first. So for my greenery, I'm just gonna add a couple little areas that's gonna have some small little green leaves. And the way I make my leaves is I like to think about it as like a smiley face with a frowny face attached. And you just kind of paint it in. That makes it really easy. Instead of thinking of like a football shape or whatever, frowny face, smiley face, fill it in. And then from there, I'm gonna put a big old sunflower up there. So I'm gonna use brown paint on my fingers. See, I am still finger painting. And I am going to make a nice big brown circle right here in the center. Now from that brown circle, I am going to take layers of golden paint, and I'm going to make these the same as my leaves. So it's the same smiley face, frowny face, all the way through, all the way around, which is gonna take a little bit of time. So I'm gonna pop myself in a speed motion as I put my flowers on there. So once I have my flower in there, I can add a little bit of my details to my flower. So with some white paint, I'm just gonna add a couple of little lines in the center of each petal, just to give it a little bit of highlight. I'm gonna touch up my center circle just to make sure, again, it is a nice circle. And none of those lines kind of popped into it. Then I'm going to use the back of my brush and I'm going to add some dots of black onto my sunflower because, you know, they have all those little seeds in there and it's nice to see that using those black dots. But I'm also going to add some white dots in there. And the white dots will be more towards the edge of the circle. And then I'm going to take a little bit of brown paint and just make a couple of little vines that kind of swirl out from my sunflower. So a couple little loops. And then with those little loops on there, I'm going to add with just my finger a couple of white dots. And then each one of those white dots, I'm going to do a very, very, very light yellow. So I'm going to have some of the white as well as the gold on my brush. And I'm just going to set my brush down all the way around it to create small little petals. And those petals can kind of overlap. So I'm using my brush as a stamp rather than a painting tool. Going all the way around. Each of those little circles. Now, if you need to go back in and kind of brighten those whites up after you painted them, that's an easy trick. Just go back in with your finger and add those whites in there. Okay, totally love this guy. So you know what the last thing you need to do is. Before you could say you're finished, you need to find a color that's going to show up well on your canvas and sign your name. I always put my name in the bottom right corner. But remember, I never get to see what you're painting at home unless you post it to our Facebook page, Painting with a Purpose. Remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Painting with a Purpose, so you are kept up to date on all of our latest tutorials. And remember, as always, stay kind, stay creative, and stay safe. Have a great day, friends. Bye now.